Good morning to all. I think only very few joined the session. Please inform others to join soon. Okay, now I'm going to present the screen. So yesterday we were discussing about the different steps in embedded system design process, and there were 5 steps, out of which we were going into detail in the first step, that is the requirements analysis step. And we said, as I said yesterday, the requirements can be of two types, functional and non-functional requirements. And the functional requirements are the basic functionalities that the system will satisfy, and non-functional requirements include the following. There is performance of the system, cost involved in uh, building the system, then physical size and weight, and the power consumption. These are the major non-functional requirements of an embedded system. Then after analyzing the functional as well as the non-functional requirements, the next phase is the requirements analysis, where a sample requirements form is generated, and this form is filled with the data that has been collected from the customer. So after collecting the requirements, a sample requirements form is to be filled out, and this form, a sample form, is shown below. And this is a sample form, and here the form includes the name, purpose, outputs, functions, performance, manufacturing cost, power, and physical size and weight of the product that is going to be developed. So these are the basic sections included in a sample requirements form, and as per the needs of the application, more sections can be added. Anyway, a basic requirements form will include all these sections, and the form can be used as a checklist in considering the basic characteristics of the system. And what are these fields? What do these fields indicate? The first one is the name. So name is given for any project that you develop. Even you're doing your main project, you give a name for the project based on the functionality, or the based on the function that or the based on the output that you're going to generate, or the based on the application that you're going to implement. And so a name is used in order to identify the project, and also to speak about the project to others, and the name should give an idea of what you're going to develop. That is the first purpose of giving a name to a project. Then next is the purpose. This includes a brief 1 or 2 line description of what the system is supposed to do, and this can be filled out only when the system is well understood. When you understand what the system is, once you understand it well, you will be able to define the purpose of the system in 1 or 2 sentences. Then, so the purpose is filled in this section. Next is the inputs and outputs to the system. So two entries are they're more complex than we see. First of all, you have to identify what are the inputs to the system. Then we have to identify the what are the outputs generated by the system, etc. So input and output, it includes a lot of details, like the following details are obtained from this section, that is the type of data that is going to be given as input, or the type of data that you will get as output. So type of data means it can be analog signals, or electronics, digital signals, or mechanical input, etc. So depending on the product that you're going to develop, what are the inputs, the type of input signals that the product will accept, and that can be identified from this section, input section. And what will be the form of output generated will also be identified from this section. That will be documented in this section. The next is the data characteristics. Data characteristics means whether the data that you're giving as input is a periodically arriving data, such as an audio sample which arrives at regular intervals, or an occasional user input just as pressing a button, etc. So, what are the that is what are the different characteristics of data that is going to be given as input to the system? So, it can be a periodic data or it can be an occasional input. Then types of output devices, that is the input or output devices that is used. It can you can give inputs to the system in the form of buttons or through in the form of signals like analog or digital signals, which where you can use analog or digital converters, or to get the output you can use video displays, etc. So all these things will be documented in the input output section of the requirements form. Next is the functions. So it's a more detailed description of what the system will do, and to identify what all functionalities the system will satisfy. One idea is to move from input to output. Give an input and find out what output the system is generating, and you can find out the basic functionality that will be carried out by the system and how the system interacts with the external users. The next is the performance section. Performance section, here we identify what are the computational requirements of the system. Most of the time, most of the embedded systems, they are designed to meet deadlines. So the computation must be performed within a certain time frame. If it is to meet any deadline, then it should be performed within certain time frame. In this performance requirements, it should be identified earlier itself to ensure that the system works properly. That is why we are listing out all these um, details during the first phase itself. Then the next is the manufacturing cost. Manufacturing cost, it primarily includes the cost of the hardware components. Since we are going to since this system deals with embedded products are usually include hardware and as well as firmware. So the cost of the hardware component is should be considered while developing a product, because if the cost is too high, then people may not afford to buy the product, and the product will fail in the market. So cost is an important factor while developing a product, and it can influence the architecture also. For example, a machine which does a particular function, it can be sold at rupees $10, or it can be sold at $100. But when a system doing the same functionality, when it is sold at $10, then the architecture of that particular machine will be entirely different from that of a machine which does the same functionality but sold at $100. So even though they are doing the same functionality, the cost difference will have a considerable impact on the architecture of the machine. The architecture of $10 machine may be very simple. It may not be able to withstand, or it may not be able to function for a longer time. Whereas for a $100 machine, it might have extra hardware to uh, increase its life. Then next is the power. Most of the embedded system, as we discussed earlier, they are battery powered or they are plugged into the wall, and battery powered machines must take more care about the power consumptions and the energy spent. Then next is the physical size and weight of the system, and this physical size and weight entirely guides the architectural design. And after writing the requirements, so these are the requirements of the system. The sample required. This is the sample requirements form where we document all these factors. And once this requirements form has been completed, it should be checked for incompleteness, inconsistencies, etc. And all these incompleteness, inconsistencies, ambiguities, etc. should be eliminated once it is completed. And once all ambiguities, inconsistencies, incompleteness, etc. has been removed, then this requirements form becomes a final document that can be passed to the next phase. So that is the first phase. Can you hear me? Hello? Somebody please respond. Can you hear me? Hello? Okay, Amruta. So we were discussing about the first phase of embedded system design process. Now, at the end of the first phase, you get a requirements form, and that is passed a sample requirements form with all these fields filled, and all ambiguities will be removed. And then the next phase begins. That is the specification phase. The specification, it is more precise because we have removed all the inconsistencies, incompleteness, incorrectness, etc. from the requirements form, and this requirements form, it becomes a contract. It is a document that is called the requirement specification document, and this serves as a contract between the customer and the architects. And this customer, once the customer agrees to this requirements form, then it is given for the developers. It is passed on to the next phase for development. As such, the specification must be carefully written so that it reflects the customer's requirements, and the specification must be understandable because it is a product. It may be carried out by different teams, so the specification written should be understandable to all the developers, and it should meet the expectations of the customer also. Only if the customer agrees, then the development team can proceed with developing the product. Then it should be unambiguous to the designers. Unambiguous means a sentence that is written in the specification document should mean the same to all, and it should not have different meanings. If people take it in different ways, then there can be different designers may understand it in different ways, and they may the design that they develop may not match with each other. So the whatever sentence is written in the specification document should be unambiguous, and it should be clear so that designers may not run into different problems. Unclear specifications may lead to wrong functionalities, and the global characteristic of specification are wrong, or if it is wrong or incomplete, then the overall architecture will not meet the needs of the customer. It will be inadequate for meeting the requirements. Then here we come across the specification of a GPS system. So this was a university question. Write the specification of a GPS system. That was a direct question, and it is given in the materials also. A specification of a GPS system. The specification of a GPS system, it includes several components like the data received from the GPS satellite constellation. So GPS system, it is going to collect data from the GPS satellite constellation, and it is going to develop a map of the different places. So as it gets data, it is going to plot it as a map on the display. So the system includes the data received from the GPS satellite constellation. Then there is map data, and there is a user interface to interact with the system. Then there are certain operations that need performed to satisfy the customer requests. Then background actions required to keep the system running, such as operating the GPS receiver. The GPS receiver is frequently collecting data, and this data which is collected is mapped, stored on a database, and this map data as map data, and this map data is plotted on a display, and the user can give his input and view the data, the map data. So, to describe the specification of any system, we use a modeling language called the UML. UML is a language for describing the specification, describing specifications as well as capturing the requirements of a system. So, this is the next section, UML. Uh, so anyway, to design a system or to represent a system in a diagrammatic way, or to visualize a system, we use the unified modeling language. So in specification phase as well as in requirements analysis phase, we come across UML representations once the system has been finalized. Then next we go on to the third phase, that is the architectural design. So once the specification is complete, all details will be there in the sample requirement in the requirements form, and from the requirements form, whatever is represented in the requirements form should be converted into an architectural design. An architecture, it shows a plan for the system that is going to be built. Just like we draw the plan for a house, the architecture shows the plan for the product that you are going to build, and it will show what are the components involved in the design, how these components interact with each other, etc. will be shown as a diagrammatic, as a block diagram. So the architectural design, it describes how the system implements its functions, how the system is going to implement its functions. That is the main purpose of the architectural design. So the main purpose of architectural design is to describe how the system implements its functions, and it acts as a plan. Architecture acts as a plan for the overall structure of the system, and it will be used to identify the components that make up the architecture. Looking at the architectural diagram, the developers can understand the will be able to understand the components that are needed to build the entire system. So creating this architecture is the first phase of design. So till the second phase, we were documenting things. We didn't start the detailed plan of the system. But the architecture, when we come to the third phase, the architectural design, this forms the first phase of design process. Actual design starts in architectural design phase. The others were only documenting phase. Then this shows a sample GPS system, a block diagram of a GPS system. So as I said, this was a university question. All these are to be included in that question. That is, this shows the block diagram of a moving map. As soon as the first you get the first block is the GPS receiver. It gets data from the GPS satellite constellation, and from there it gives to a search engine, and the search engine searches a database. All data related to these locations will be stored in the database. From the database, the search engine takes the map data, and it is given to a renderer. A renderer will plot the points on the display, and user can interact with this renderer to find out as per the user requirements, the data displayed can be modified. So the diagram describes how to implement the functions described in the specification. And there is a database, the topographical, that is this shows the locations of once the GPS receiver receives the satellite from the data from the satellite constellation. It will be in the form of latitudes and longitudinal values that is searched for in this topographical database. And from the database, the search engine will find out the exact location of that particular value received, and then it is plotted on the display. So searching this database base and rendering the results on the display can be done in parallel. Once the searching is going on, the previous values can be plotted on the display. So this goes on continuously. As long as the GPS is receiving the data, the process goes on continuously, and this mapping goes on continuously plotting the data values on the display and just generating a moving map effect. Then this is the architectural diagram. So since it is an embedded system, it has two parts. That is, it has both hardware as well as firmware. So we can separate this diagram into two parts. That is, one for hardware and the other for software part. So embedded system is a combination of hardware and software. So the architectural diagram also will include architecture for hardware as well as architecture for software. And this first diagram, it shows the entire architecture, which includes both hardware and software units. And from this block diagram, we can separate it into two diagrams, one for hardware and the other for software. So the first figure shows the hardware design of the system. In the hardware architecture, we can see that there is a CPU. There should be a central processing unit. Then there is a GPS receiver, which is again a hardware unit. Then there are I/O devices, and then there is the frame buffer, was temporarily storing the data to be plotted on the display. And there is memory for processing. CPU needs memory for storing and for storing the programs and instructions. So all these come under the hardware units of the GPS tracking system, moving map system. Then Next is the software. The software units include the position. They are nothing but data values, data that is given as in but which the user will give as input, and this user through the user interface, and through the user interface the data once the user input is given, the database search is carried out, and from the database the exact location is given to the renderer, which is plotted as pixels on the screen. Now here there is a timer unit involved in order to control the time delay between the input and the rendering process. Otherwise, the first input given should be plotted first, the second should be plotted second, and so on. So to control the timing effect, to control the sequence in which data is plotted as pixels on the screen, there is a timer to control it. So this architecture shows the hardware and software architecture for the moving map. So here we had shown three figures. The first, this figure is the entire architecture for the GPS moving map. Then this shows the hardware section of it. This embedded system is a combination of both hardware and software. This shows the top figure shows hardware section, and the bottom figure shows the software involved in that. So these are the architectural diagrams for the moving map. So the explanation is given here. The hardware block, it shows that there is a central CPU surrounded by these I/O devices, memory, etc., and a frame buffer for the pixels to be displayed on the screen. And there is a memory, as usual, for storing programs or data. The software unit, it includes the database. Then there is a timer, which is added to control the input and the rendering process. So this architecture which is drawn, it should satisfy both the functional as well as the non-functional requirements, such as the non-functional requirements which we have listed earlier, the cost, speed, power, etc. And other, there can be, depending on the application, there can be other non-functional constraints also. Uh, when once the system architecture is defined, it is then refined into hardware and software architectures. And this ensures that all specification will be met. The architecture should ensure that all the specification that we have generated in the second phase is met by the system. Then the last phase is system integration. Once you have the architecture designed, the developers will look at the architecture. He will collect all the hardware components necessary. He will write down the code for the software that is necessary, and to integrate with the hardware, to integrate the different hardware units, and then he will start building the system one by one, connecting each units one by one. And this is the most tedious task in the development process, because it is this phase that uncovers errors, and errors has to be fixed by the developers. The integration is difficult because it usually uncovers problems, and debugging facilities for the embedded systems are much more limited than desktop machines. So embedded systems, since they are developed as per requirements from the customer, all tools may not be available to test the system. There will be only limited tools to test the system, and also determining where things went wrong will be difficult, because you can just give an input and see the output. By monitoring the input and output functionalities, the developers should be able to identify the errors in the system. So, as a result, determining why things are not working correctly and how they can be fixed is a challenge during this integration process. So, appropriate debugging facilities must be included, which can help the system to solve the integration developers to solve the integration problems. So, this is the phase which requires the most effort during the development process, because putting things together in this space usually consists of planning and careful planning. And if it is not planned, then large number of errors has to be met by the developers. Errors has to be solved by the developers. So these are the different phases involved in the software design process. And embedded system design process. It can be asked as a single question like what are the requirements after explain the embedded system design process. As a single question it can be asked, or it can be asked like what are the major steps in the embedded system design process. It can be a question. And the last time, since it is too lengthy, last time they asked write the specification for the GPS system. So it can be asked in phases also, or they can ask what are the requirements to be met by a GPS system, by a moving map. So depending on the question you should answer. If only one phase is, only one step is asked, then write in detail about that phase or that step. If the entire question is asked, you have to give a summary of all these phases along with the figure. So one important question, that was one very important question from first module. Hello, do you have any doubts? Hello, do you have any doubt? You may please ask. Hello. So then say your attendance, please. Abhilash A, present. Okay. Abhinav Chandran.
Present, Miss.
Okay. Answer.
Present, Miss.
Anushri. Arjun N. Ashwin P. Atul Dinesh. Uh, Atul Dinesh. Absent. Febin. Febin is roll number 12. Those who are having network issue should inform, okay? Febin 80. Roll number 12, absent. Okay. Roll number 13. Roll number 14. 16. 17. 17. Roll number 17. Mrudula. Absent. Roll number 18. Okay. 20. Roll number 20. Atul Dinesh. Roll number 20 is Ramesh. Roll number 20 absent. 22. Roll number 22. Roll number 23. Okay. 24. Okay. 26. Okay. 27. Sriraj. Okay. Suben 28. Okay. Vishnu P. Okay. Amrita P. Okay. Ashwati C. Okay. Jidina. Okay. Harita. Okay. Amal Santosh. Okay. So absentees. Number 9, Atul Dinesh. Then number 17, Mridula. Number 20, Ramesh. And number 22, Sharath PV.
മിസ്സേ അതുൽ ദിനേശ് ഉണ്ട്.
എവിടെ?
അവന്റെ നെറ്റ് ഇഷ്യൂ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു നേരത്തെ ചാറ്റിലിട്ട്.
നേരത്തെ കയറിയിട്ടുണ്ടായിരുന്നോ?
നേരത്തെ എന്നോ പറഞ്ഞു, ചാറ്റ് പറയുന്നുണ്ടായിരുന്നു.
അതുൽ ദിനേശ്. ആ, ഓക്കെ. ഇപ്പോൾ 3 പേരാണ് ഇപ്പോൾ ഇല്ലാത്തത്. മൃദുല, റമീസ്, ശരത് PV. ഓക്കെ, താങ്ക് യു.